Welcome to the Real Joe Show. On this episode, we are very excited to be speaking with Bastian from Charleston, South Carolina. Trad has built a great business, part of it, by servicing his baseball league, where he earned quite a bit of money. We'll get into that. And he's just a regular good guy, and we'll learn about his business. Welcome, Trad.
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great. We're fortunate to have you in our market center a few weeks ago talking about this, and as soon as I heard it, I wanted to get you on the show. So let's back it up a little bit, give some background. How long have you been in real estate?
Yeah, so I got my license in '07, but my dad and grandfather were both in commercial and residential development, so I've kind of been around it all my life. But officially got my license in '07, and then got into property management after '08 kind of happened, and didn't really get into sales full time until 2013. So I took a little bit of a longer path to get to the sales route, but um, I think it was beneficial. I learned a lot from property management, mostly that I don't want to do it at least that way ever again.
So it's interesting. A lot of agents that I talk to, they look at that as as a potential good piece of business for them. I've done a little bit on short-term property management, short-term rentals, uh, and you seem to not have appreciated it that much, except for the experience you got and a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of
Well,
work.
it's a lot of work. You need a staff. Like, you can't, as a solo agent, you cannot do that and scale it in any real shape, form, or fashion. So the caveat is I wouldn't do it the way I did it before. And the funny thing is, I'm about to partner with a property management company out of Philly that's going to basically kind of white label the property management,
Nice.
meaning that I'll help get it listed and rented, and then they'll handle the day to day property management. I'll give them all the vendors they need, and I'll have somebody on, boots on the ground. Ideally, it won't be me, that
Right.
goes and checks houses if need be. So we're getting ready to launch that probably in the next month or so. So it should be good. It should be I'm looking at it as income source and referral and repeat business as well for the sales side, as well as the property management side.
No, absolutely. It's definitely a good feeder for the business, and like you said, it needs a structure, and to be able to tap into something that already exists that sounds like a good opportunity.
Yeah, it should be good. We'll see. I mean, we're still in the early stages of it, but I've got a past client that does short term and midterm. I just spoke with her today, and I was like, hey, listen, so when I get this thing up and running, I know you don't want to handle long term. Can I be your go to? And she's like, absolutely. So I've got another short term manager that I'm going to talk to as well, and just see if I can start getting some of that referral business coming in.
That's great. Smart. All right, so let's talk about your real estate business, your sales business. What's the structure of your associates, Bastian and Associates?
Yeah, so currently we've got an executive assistant, a virtual assistant, transaction coordinator that is uh, per deal, per transaction. It's not in house yet. We just don't do enough units to warrant paying somebody a full time thing. And we probably could have our VA do it, but I like it being separate because I want the VA to focus on certain things, and I want the TC to just focus on being a TC, at least for now.
Right.
And we just brought on an agent. We've had agents kind of come and go, but I feel like now we really have the team built out the way I want, so that I can actually provide the value that I feel is what one should provide as a team to agents, more than just like, hey, here's a bunch of leads, figure it out. So the
Right.
the intent is to give the agent time back, so they're not having to deal with paperwork, except for writing the contract and then negotiating, because my guy, everybody else isn't licensed, so the agent's in charge of all the negotiations and the contracts. But any kind of follow up and paperwork, anything that's not income producing, ideally, is going to be off of their plate.
That's
So
fantastic.
And then when they go out of town, we don't have it yet, but we'll have a showing assistant that will be able to show properties for them, and then we can work out a split between the two agents and figure it out so that they can actually go on vacation and be on vacation instead of having to worry about if their business is suffering. So that's the intent.
That's the right steps. So who was your first hire? Was it the assistant?
So I had a part-time assistant when I was about 4 million in volume. She worked 20 hours a week. I hit a home run with her. It was dumb luck. I think it was a referral that was going to be a listing client and turned into my part-time admin.
That's great.
And it was one of those things where I spoiled myself because the next 7 weren't that great. So I've got a good one. I got a really good one now. And she's full-time, but that first one, she was I can't remember if she was a loan officer or in underwriting, but she knew enough about real estate. So I didn't have to teach her from scratch, and she was on it, man. But yeah, so she was the first hire. I would say if I were to do it differently or do it again, I'd probably start with a transaction coordinator. And I know that goes against the MREA, and I'm kind of late to the MREA game. I joined KW in 2019, so I don't follow it 100%. But I like the TC role first because it's not a paid, like it's not a salary. So like for an agent that needs some support but isn't confident enough, because that was a big thing for me, is I'm now supporting another family, or at least another individual, and that's kind of daunting when you're like, it's 100% commission. I don't know if I want to make the same amount of money next year, and hopefully I can support them and me.
Right.
So that TC being, a per transaction thing, I think is an easier pill to swallow for a newer agent that's not sure where their, next check's coming from. And it gives them a lot of support. And then the next one would be an assistant, and then either virtual assistant or joint assistant, or another agent. But I like to have more staff than I probably need for what I currently have, so that I can load it up and not have to be hiring more people in the back end, and the customer service suffers, and then the agents leave because they're not getting what I promised and all that. So I tend to have a little bit more overhead than I probably need at the moment, but now I'm in scale mode. So I'm trying to add 2 more agents before January of next year.
Very nice. So what the agents that you're looking for? Are you looking for experienced agents, new agents to coach, train, bring them up your way?
So the new agents would, the way I've got it set up now is ideally my avatar would be someone that's in a similar position as me, as far as being a solo breadwinner and having a young family. And it's not hard and fast, but that's what I'm kind of envisioning, because that's the person that needs the time back to either make more money or go on vacations and spend time with their family. So that's where I think that, and so someone that's doing like 5 to 12 million, give or take, is kind of what I would like to attract. And I've talked to a couple people, but from the new agent standpoint, I'm 100% on board with that, because what I would do is have them start our agent and training program, which is essentially a showing assistant on steroids. So like you're showing, but we're also going to help you become an agent if that's what you want. If you want to be a showing assistant forever, cool. But if you want to actually go into sales full time, then I would bring that person in to start writing contracts and get them more acclimated to what that looks like, and then transition them onto the team as a full-blown agent, and then hire another showing assistant / agent in training.
That's
so we always just building the bench up and having people ready to go.
That's great. And if you're doing it that way, you're actually using them as leverage for time while you're training them. So it's not going to suck up your time just to train them.
Exactly. And we don't really, I've never, and I know we'll probably touch on this a little bit more so, but I've never really bought leads. I mean, I am now a little bit, just because I've got other people in the team and their database isn't as strong as mine. So I'm kind of supplementing, but the goal for me is to teach them how to fish, not to hand them the fish.
Yeah.
And that may burn me, and people may leave and do it on their own after they figured it out. That's totally fine. We both made money. There's no hard feelings. You know, ideally I can make Bastian Associates big enough for them to find a space here. But if they go out on their own, I mean, I've had two people that I've mentored. One was on my team, one wasn't, but both of them do more business than I do now, which it's funny and a little frustrating, but at the same time, I don't know what they net. So I don't compete against them, because one of them pays for a ton of leads and I have no idea what his net take home is. And I know that mine is where I want it to be. So
that's good. Yeah. A lot of agents fail to consider their bottom line. You know, it's even though we're all the agents for their own business, sometimes they're not running off of P&Ls. They're not paying attention where the money's going. And it's always easy to look at somebody's volume, like you're saying, their volume might look great, yet we just have no idea what they're actually making.
Yeah,
so a lot of people assume that because they're driving around the big car and they're doing multi-millions, they could be on the brink of bankruptcy at any moment in some cases.
And that's the thing, is like that's one of the reasons why I don't try to compare myself to other people. Yes, I like competing just because it's fun, but I'm not going to sit there and, like the guy that was on my team, I think I don't know, I'm not sure about this year, but I think last year they did like 60 million and I did like 26. He's got 3 or 4 or 5 agents on his team, and he's, pays at least 10,000, if not more, a month for Zillow leads and stuff like that. So yeah, you did 60 million, but what did you keep? Because I don't care what you made. What did you keep? That's all that really matters at the end of the day.
That is all that matters. Profit matters.
Yes.
I want to go back to when you hired your first person. Mm-hmm. That's pretty young as far as doing 4 million in production. That's not a lot of production to be hiring. What was your thought at that point?
I hated paperwork. So I'm with KW. I'm 2 minutes from the market center, but I have my own office. We do not have a printer in the office, and that's how much I hate paper. Like we transitioned from having to do paper, because at that time we didn't have DocuSign, so you had to actually scan and email everything to get signatures. But so I had her doing a lot of the buyer rep agreements, listing agreements, putting stuff on MLS, just the stuff that was not income producing, and to try to keep me in my 20%. And this was before I ever even knew what I was actually doing. I just knew that I didn't want to do that, because it just was not. I knew that I was going to make money writing listing descriptions.
That's right.
So
that's good. Good insight.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of like I don't want to do this. Let me find somebody that can do it for me. And I read a book. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like something silly, like the first book to read when you become an agent, or something like that. And one of the things that the guy talked about was not worrying about your website, your business cards, any of that stuff. Just start calling people and making connections and letting people know that you're in the industry. And then you can get all that other stuff, because all of that is just a distraction from generating income. So, so it worked out. I mean, the first year in sales, I did probably like 2.5 million. Second year was like 4, then did about 5 or 6, and then jumped to like 8, and then 12, and just kind of kept. I tried to double every year is what my goal was, and it hadn't happened in the last couple of years, but it's more been about building out the team and getting everything situated so that we can scale faster and move a little bit quicker.
So even at that point when you're doing the 4 mil, and did you feel an instant opportunity, relief to be able to go and did you find yourself using that time wisely and actually going out and talking to more people, or did you pull back? Well, how'd you handle that? Because it's a big relief when all that stuff's off your table.
Well, it is, and it's also, and this is something I've had to kind of have the conversation with my wife, is when you hire someone, it's not an instant gratification kind of thing, because you have to train them. So initially it's more time because and what happens is if you're a little bit controlling, like I can tend to be sometimes, or was more so back then, you don't want to let stuff go, and because you can do it right, and so instead of teaching the person how to do it right, you just do it. I had to get over that pretty quickly because I was paying her, one, and two, I just didn't have the time. So I would say, yes, it was a relief to get all that stuff off my plate. And then at the same time, I had a friend of mine from college who worked with a company that did tax sale properties. And apparently he had backlogged like 60 properties for the entire state of South Carolina. And he needed to get them off his books ASAP so that he could move to the next level in the business or in the company. And so I had her, basically, we created a network of agents. This was, again, before KW, so I didn't have the access like we do now. Right. So I just started calling around whichever city we had them in. I'd call, vet the agent, and then get them linked up and then send them properties. But it was on a referral basis, and they were, garbage properties. They were $100,000 was probably the highest price point. So like the referral fee was maybe $100. So what I did is I went back to my buddy and I was like, hey, listen, we're gonna have to charge like a management fee on these or something, like $4.99 per deal. And I got that approved, and we probably did like 12 grand just in the management fee. Nice. And I split that with my admin and gave her half. So It was a bonus for her. And I didn't have to do any of the work. Once we had the agent set up, she just sent on the properties, and I never touched it. It was great.
Nice, smart. So you grew up in Charleston. You're from there, and you mentioned it, not buying leads. So how did you start out with your business, getting the word out, and where are you now? That's a long in between.
Yeah. So I will say this. I had a fraternity brother of mine call me up one day and goes, "Hey man, can you help me move? I'm moving from James on to Mount Pleasant." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, man. Where'd you find a rent?" He goes, "Oh no, I didn't find a place to rent. I bought." And I'm like, "You know that I'm a real estate agent, right?" He goes, "No, I didn't know that." And I was like, "Well, you will never not know again." And so that was the moment where I was like, "Okay, I need to get more serious about how I'm doing business," because I was getting some business here and there and kind of catching my stride. But after that, I was like, I'm happy to help you move, but you're gonna work with me next time. Right. And so essentially what I did is just started using social media. I mean, it was relatively easy. I was already kind of doing it, but just not being purposeful with it. And so, it's just the walk through tours of homes and talking about the market but I personally don't like to overload my social media with real estate because it gets boring, especially if it's just listed, just sold. Nobody cares. Right. They don't. So I play in a men's baseball league. I talk about that. I talk about my kids. I show off my dogs. We live on a tidal creek and it's got a really pretty sunrise. Like, I'll do that. And I get more likes about all that crap than my real estate post, but it works. And one of my favorite stories, I had a buddy of mine from high school. We weren't like boys by any means. I actually thought he was kind of an ass, but after college, he came up to me in a wedding and he goes, "Man, you're killing it in real estate." I hadn't sold anything in 3 months. And I was like, "Oh yeah, killing it, man." I was making more money than I ever had before. So in my eyes, I was still killing it. And then a year later, we were at another wedding. He goes, "Man, you are crushing it in real estate." Now, mind you, we're friends on Facebook. He has not liked, commented, or anything on any of my posts, but he's seeing them. And so that the second time it clicked, I was like, okay, so this is working. Like, what I'm doing is working. He's seeing it. He's not even liking it, but he's still seeing me. So that's good. And then a year later, he calls me to list his property. Then he sends me his sister. Then his sister sends me her friend, who sends me his girlfriend, who sends me another guy. And I'm actually unlisted. I have a property listed from that guy. And I'm probably going to get another listing and a buy from another guy that was related to my buddy from high school 8 years ago. It's still paying off. So that's where I feel like these teams, and again, I'm not knocking anybody's strategy, but I feel like these teams that focus on buying leads and the transactions and just rolling and churning through them with no real SOI or any way to stay in touch with those people, it's just a waste. I mean, you just wasted so much money. You could have transacted 10 times more deals off that one individual over the lifetime, but that's one of those things where I don't understand it. I like my profit margins to be high, and that is SOI and agent referrals are probably the highest return on investment you can get.
Absolutely. And if an agent is stuck on lead gen, it's almost like a needle in their arm where they can't get off it.
Yep.
It's because that's their juice. They need it to keep coming. And if they're smart and they're good at it, they'll work their background, they'll work the people at the close, and continue to work their sphere of influence. If they do that well enough, they're not going to want leads anymore.
No, why would you?
There's got to be a point. They're so expensive. I don't know. I don't get it. I understand it for agents that might not live in the area, they may be new to the area, and they have to figure out a way to get off. They have to figure out a way to get off it. Otherwise,
yeah, and it's just more work. Like, who would you rather work with? Someone that already knows, likes, and trusts you, or some stranger that you coerce to work with you via paying for a lead that now you have to build this trust, and the entire time they're second guessing if you're actually working in their best interest or not. I mean, go work with the people I know, like, and trust me.
The conversion rate's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so low. I mean, and that was my other thought process with it. And I'm hearing, you have to make 100 calls to get one closing. I'm like, that seems like a giant waste of time. Why wouldn't you just build your database? Yes, it's going to take longer and you won't make as much money as quickly, but long term, I mean, I'm at a point now where people call me. I don't have to hunt for leads. I mean, and at the beginning of this year, the tail end of last year and the beginning of this year, I think it showed how much an SOI can really, in your database and managing your database, can really benefit, because you've got these teams that are solely based on lead sources, whatever the lead source is. They were having to spend double, maybe as much as they did, maybe a little less than they did the year before. And so your profit margins are gone. And so now you don't have any backup, and you just got to keep pumping cash into those leads. And yeah, it'll get you through, but man, I'd rather just have that sphere, man. The first half of this year was the best first half of my career. Third quarter slowed down a little bit. Fourth quarter slowed down a little bit, but I mean, I was rolling, and I thought I was going to bypass what I did last year. Didn't quite happen that way, but I got a ton in my pipeline right now. I mean, we probably have it sitting on over $500,000 in GCI that's just waiting to transact. So, I mean, like, it may not happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen eventually.
Right. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. That whole lead gen model, I don't understand it. And, like we talked about earlier, we were talking about agents that they might have a huge number on their top line and volume that they're doing. By the time you get to that bottom line, and if they're the team leader or they own that company, and they have all that infrastructure to pay for and all those leads they have to pay for, and they get 1% maybe conversion at the bottom line, that they're hurting. They're hurting.
Yeah.
Many of them anyway.
I mean,
let's talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about the juice. My favorite story from you is your baseball league, and that's quite a story. You spoke about it in our meeting, and I'd love you to retell that story here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just wrapped up our fall league. So there's a spring and there's a fall, and we were in the championship. We lost 3-2. It was a great game. I pitched 8 innings and struck out 8 guys, and it was not enough to win. So it is what it is. But I've been in the league for like 14 years. Again, I started right after college, so probably like 08, give or take, and wasn't really in sales. I was doing property management. I was pretending to be an agent, and I just was not not there. So I didn't really focus on the team as much, but I was building relationships, and there was one or two guys I knew from college that had played with us, and I'd worked with them, help them buy early on. And then about when I started getting real serious with sales, like 14, 15, 16, I was getting catching my stride, and I was kind of figuring out what I was doing wrong and doing right, and started focusing on doing more right. My coach was like, "Hey, listen, man, we need to get some new uniforms." He was just talking with me. He wasn't asking for anything. He's like, "We need to get some new uniforms." And, I always have trouble getting money from these guys, and it's like pulling teeth. I was like, "Well, how much do uniforms cost?" He's like, "Like $1,000, $1,500 if you include hats." I was like, "All right, cool." The first time, I think I got Tito's to sponsor us. And then after that, I was like, why don't I just sponsor us? And so I sponsored the team the following year and just put my logo on the back of the jerseys. Didn't even have my number, didn't have a website, nothing. Just the logo. It's got my name on it, whatever. And at the height, I think I was sponsoring like 4 different teams in the league. And just buying jerseys. And then I would, we would do like a tournament. I'd throw in $500 for, they'd either get food or balls or whatever, or fields, use some cash for that. And, over the time, I think I probably maybe was spent, I haven't tracked the exact dollar amount, but I know I haven't spent more than $25,000 in the last 7 years. And this year we hit 400,000 in GCI in the last 7 years from that baseball league. So it's one of those, well, and that's the thing, man. The ROI is insane. And so that's my juice. Instead of paying for leads, I want that huge ROI, and you can't get that on everything. And I understand that, but it's really tough to go from that to a paid lead. So it's been a little bit of I just had to get on my own way for the team standpoint of buying leads and stuff. But I'm still teaching my team how to generate their own leads. And the class that I was teaching, that hobby hustle class, it came from this baseball league. And it was great. I mean, like I think I prefaced the whole meeting or the whole class with, "Hey, listen, this is about y'all. I don't care if we don't get through all these slides. I want to make sure that we spend as much time as y'all need on whatever makes the most sense for y'all." And it was great to have some interaction. I think there was a woman that did, she's a master gardener. There was another one that had weed and wine Wednesdays or something like that, which I thought was a great idea. And then the cyclist. And then at the end, after I was about to leave, and this guy walks up and goes, "Hey, man, it's a great idea, but my hobby's buying houses." I was like, "Okay, so what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, I mean, how can I make a group out of that?" I'm like, "Well, you can have an investor group. That's a really good idea." I was like, "Yeah, it is. You should do that." Because I'm like, you could be the one, you're going to find more deals for yourself in that group. 2, you could be the facilitator for all the deals. So you just get them in the room. And I still can't remember who the agent was that was telling me about this, but they had like, I don't know, 30, 40 different investors from the area. They'd come in and they start wheeling and dealing. And he's writing contracts while they're in the room and setting everything up. And I can't remember what the number was, but it was something insane. It was like $10 million in business in one sitting. I was like, Jesus. Now, you got to work all that out as far as the commissions and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, yeah, you absolutely can use that hobby and do the exact same thing. So he was like, "Damn, that's a really good idea." I was like, "Well, you should do it. Let me know how it goes and give me 10%.
I think a lot of agents overthink it, right? I mean, you're just being you. You're just being natural, Brad. I mean, you're not trying to invent yourself to be outside of who you are. You're living your life, and you're putting your business forward.
I mean, listen, there was a point in my career where I felt like I needed to dress a certain way, act a certain way, do all this stuff. And I found out fairly quickly. One, I was like, how can I get to a point where I can be the Steve Jobs of real estate and wear jeans and a t-shirt and nobody say anything? Because that's what I want to wear every day. I don't want to wear a suit. I'm not knocking anybody that does, but I don't personally want to. They never fit right. They're always hot. It's 90 million degrees down here. It just isn't me. So right. 2 years ago, I was like, screw it. I'm just going to start wearing t-shirts and jeans and tennis shoes to every showing. And the only people, which was funny, the only people that actually gave me hell about it were my lowest price point buyers.
No.
And he was the dad of, and it's one specific guy. He was the dad of one of my baseball buddies. I think he was just giving me crap. But still, I was like, man, you're buying a $215,000 house. I just sold a $3.25 million house, and this dude never said one thing about my jeans or my t-shirt. Like, why do you care? Like, I mean, the service is going to be there. The dress doesn't matter. So, I mean, I think that's key though. Being who you are, whether that's buttoned up with a nice suit and that's your, your uniform. Cool, do that, but don't try to be somebody you're not, because it shows through and it's hard to keep up. It takes too much mental juice to play that role when you can just be yourself, and it's a lot easier. And you'll attract people that you actually want to work with because they're like you in certain respects.
Well, as a guy that always wears a coat, white or blue shirt to work.
But you got your uniform, man.
What's that?
I said you got your uniform. That's it.
This is it. I don't think about it. It's a white blue shirt. It goes with everything I wear. So I don't think it's the same thing. I went to Catholic school my whole life, so I always had a uniform. So when I got out of school or when I got into college, I was like, all right, so now what? And like, you can wear whatever the hell we want. I was like, okay, cool. Jeans and a t-shirt. That sounds great. I was like, if I can live my entire life in jeans and a t-shirt, I'll be doing all right. So that's great.
But
that's great. So that's a big part of your sphere. Obviously, that's a big chunk of your business.
It's about 20. It usually runs about 20 to 25% of my business each year.
Nice. Where's the other 75? What are you doing to stay in front of the other people? You mentioned social media.
Yeah. So I would say the baseball league is pretty much part of the SOI group. So the other lead lever, I mean, like I take it out just so I can account for it and see what's, and measure it. But the other main lead lever outside of SOI is agent referrals.
Okay.
And it's the staying in top of mind with agents and clients is the exact same. I don't know why anybody overthinks this or tries to do it more. But it's essentially just staying in contact with them, whether that's via social media, calling them, texting them, whatever their medium is of communication, do that. So I've got agents and clients in our CRM system, just so that I can go and take notes and keep tabs on what our conversations were about. And then, if I text them, I'm working on this. I'm not great at it, but I want to go back and follow up in our CRM and just log it essentially. So that I can see, oh, John had his baby last year. You need to talk to him and see how that's going and da-da-da-da-da. So basically it's been social media via Instagram, Facebook, and then TikTok, which TikTok is different. Facebook and Instagram for me are client facing. TikTok is agent facing. So like I'm focused on finding agents outside of my market that will send me leads or send me referrals in Charleston. One, because I'm not smart enough to figure out how to work the algorithm to make sure the people in Charleston or moving to Charleston are looking at my stuff. And two, there was a couple different trolls, if you will, on TikTok that would just give agents a hard time. So I just started trolling them back, and agents loved it. And I was like, well, this is fun. So it was a nice little event session. I'm building rapport with the other agent. This other person who's trolling is in the ether. Who cares? They're not real, or they are, and they're just a, miserable human. But so it was fun. And it was never really aggressive, but more funny, tongue in cheek kind of stuff. And maybe a little poke here and there. But yeah, so the agent referral thing is huge for me. And that was the reason, well, one of a handful of reasons why I joined KW, because I was like, Command, it's another CRM. it's going to do what it's going to do. I still don't use it to its fullest extent.
That's huge.
But but the agent referrals, when the team lead was talking with me, I was like, tell me more about that. And he was like, oh yeah, you can tap into the whole nation. I was like, yeah, I'll be able to make money doing that. So the first year I did like 25,000 in GCI out of the agent referrals. Second year jumped up to like 77,000. Next year was like 70-ish, same round. And then last year was 137,000. And so when I have people who are trying to recruit me, I'm like, cool. Can you give me $137,000 in agent referrals day one? Because if you can't, I'm not going anywhere. I don't care about your profit share and your splits and your this. I don't do it with KW. I probably should, but I don't. But I focus on the agent referrals, and that is probably this year. I want to say it's probably about 23 to 25% of my business. And I'm right at 100,000 in GCI this year.
So, give me the slow turn on that. How do you identify them, and how do you connect at first? Like, how do you start that?
So I joined KW in 2019 in April. So I think Bold was like right after that. So I went to Bold. I mean, I dove in because the team lead's like, listen, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And if you don't go to anything, you're not going to see the value and you'll leave because you didn't get what we offer. And I was like, I get it. So I went to Bold. KWYP had just started here, which I've technically aged out of at this point, but they'll still let me hang around. But I joined that, and then via Facebook, there was something on the Facebook KWYP page talking about going to Mega Camp, and I was like, well, I'm going to go because I've never been, and I feel like that's just dive in fully, right? And so they had an Airbnb, had a 4-bedroom house and 6 Airstreams, which I was like, well, that sounds cool. And the price was like $300 for the whole week. And I was like, that sounds great. I'm definitely a cheap ass. Let's go. So I get there. I got there about an hour and a half before check-in time. There was already 5 people there. Everybody had a drink in their hand. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody had a drink, and 3 people were on their computers. I'm like, these are my people. This is going to be fun. And from then on, I had 20 to 25 people that we were always in communication. We still have a Facebook message from 2019 that has never sat stagnant. So that was the start of it. And so I built up relationships with them, which then they know other people. So they start, mentioning me to them, and just, natural progression of things. Right. So, I mean, that's why it kind of went from 25 to 70 something. And then Facebook referral pages, like you get on those KW page, the referral pages, and then other bigger ones. I'm trying to get away from those right now just because they're a little bit saturated. And it's more speed to lead. I feel like now, instead of actually vetting the agent, which I think is a mistake on the referring agent's part, but it's not, I can't tell them, hey, you should have done it different. So give it to me. But,
Right.
But so the idea would be to, you got to start somewhere, build that base of agents that are outside of your market, and just develop friendships with them and relationships, and try to pour into them. And, I'm an open book. If anybody asks me about how I do stuff, I have no secrets. If you can beat me at my own game, good on you, but you're not taking my baseball league. There ain't no way. It's not going to happen. So, and it's funny because there was another agent in the league, and right about the time I was sponsoring teams, one of the guys came up to me. He was on the guy's team, and then he transferred to our team. He goes, yeah, so-and-so's in the league. And I asked him about sponsoring our team back a couple of years ago. And he's like, oh, there's no money in it. Why would I do that? And I was like, well, he's an idiot. So there's plenty of money in it. But yeah. So, I mean, it's just the agent to agent referrals. I think if you kind of got to hustle and grind for the ones on the Facebook pages, but as you develop a good group of agents, it starts almost just it's come list me, or comes, help my buyer. They're calling me. Hell, just in the command or connect with your bio. Like, I just filled that out, put a picture up, and did the whole thing. I've had more people hit me. Well, not more. I've had several people hit me up just because it was filled out. And they're like, hey, one, you filled it out. it looks like you've done several transactions. You know what you're doing, and you've been in the industry for a while, and you grew up in the area. So why wouldn't I send them to you? I was like, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's, again, if you're going to be in KW, utilize the tools they give you. You don't have to utilize all of them, but pick a handful and use them. And then you'll see the value and want and stay, because you can't get that same. I mean, you know, there's 160, 180,000 agents within KW. If you're not picking off, you know, $100,000 in agent referrals, you try a little harder, unless you've got a different lead lever that works for you. But I mean, like, again, this is, to me, the agent referrals is just like the baseball league and just like the SOI. All I'm doing is the same thing. I'm just being me, communicating with people, pouring into them if I can, adding value to them if I can, and sending referrals. Not a whole lot of people leave Charleston once they get here, so I don't send out a whole lot of outbound referrals, but I've got one right now that's closing in Florida next week. So, nice. I mean, you know, it does happen, but it's just rare. Charleston, once you get here, you don't really want to leave.
Yeah, I got to get down. I haven't been there yet.
Oh man, it's great. Just
here.
There's tons of places to eat, so just be prepared.
Yeah, well, I'm going to make reservations when we do it. So let's jump on to another topic, and that is breast cancer. Tell me about what you did for that.
Yeah, so I started a nonprofit while I was in grad school because I didn't feel like I had enough on my plate, and I didn't realize that people hired people to do their 501c3 paperwork because it takes a long time. And I finally got an attorney pro bono through my sister-in-law, and he goes, "Who did your 501c3 paperwork?" I was like, "You're looking at him." He goes, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "How much would you have charged me to do that?" He's like, "About 10 grand. I was like, "Good. I saved a lot of money." So the backstory, my mom or my grandmother passed from breast cancer. My mom is, I'm gonna get this wrong, 15 years cancer-free. Wow. And I have a sister, and now at the time I didn't, but now I have 2 daughters. So it's never something that's going to be that far removed from me. And I already have the 2 people in my life that meant the most to me that have been affected by it. So it was something for me that I was like, okay, how do I make this something that I want to be a part of, and not just volunteering my time or going to do the Komen race or whatever. Like, I enjoy that. That's fun. But like, I want to do something more. How do I do that? And my grandfather donated a large sum of money to Hollings Cancer Center while my grandmother was going through breast cancer. And so I thought that was a really cool cause to then donate to as well. I have not donated as much money as he has, but I'm working on it, and slowly. So essentially I came up with Rockers for Knockers. So we do benefit concerts for breast cancer, and we I think at the time, I think it was like 80% of whatever we raised went to Komen and Hollings Cancer Center, and then we retained a certain amount for, you know, operations and stuff. So we started in 2011. I'm happy to say that the first year we profited, even though it's a nonprofit. And it was one of our sponsors bailed on us in August, and the event was the first weekend in October. So me and my partner Ian ponied up the additional $3,000 we needed, and we were both like, neither one of us had the money to really give. But we're like, well, this is either going to work or it's not. And we ended up, I think, making like 6,000 or 7,000 on top, and paid ourselves back for that initial fee. And then after that, we went from one location with 3 bands to, there's an area in Mount Pleasant called Shim Creek. It's a creek, and there's restaurants all along it. And Ian was doing all the booking of the bands for Reds, which is one of the bars. And he was talking to the owner, and he was like, "Hey, you know, we had this." And he's like, "Oh, y'all should do that on Shim Creek and get all the bars and restaurants involved." And I was like, "That sounds like a lot." He's like, "Oh, it'll be fine." It was a lot. we had at the height, we had 5 locations, 27 bands, and wow. We raised $37,000 in a day, in a 1-day event. And so
Wow.
it was really cool. It's a lot of work. And for a 1-day event, you don't really think that it's going to be a year-long project, but it's a year-long project to get all the pieces in place and the volunteers and all that kind of stuff. So, but COVID kind of knocked that out. I've actually got a client that just moved here last year, and in talks with her, we kind of discussed bringing it back around, and she's going to do the day-to-day operations, which is the biggest thing for me. I don't have the time with kids and work and everything else. Just don't have the time that I had before. So she's like, I'm retired. It's a cause that is near and dear to me. And if I don't make any money, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, I want to make sure that you get paid for your time. She's like, I don't need to initially. Let's grow it, and then we can talk about that. I was like, love all of that. Let's go. So we're working on that now, and hopefully we'll have an event next year in October. So
maybe I'll be driving down.
It'll be a fun time because we're probably going to do the exact same thing. Go back to the playbook that worked and hit up Shin Creek. I mean, the only problem with that is in any outdoor event, if anybody's done events, they'll know outdoor events are 50-50, man, especially here in Charleston. It could rain and ruin the whole thing.
Right.
Or luckily with the restaurants, you have an indoor aspect to it. So you can kind of get away with it. It's just it's not going to be as big because people just won't come because they assume it's canceled.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I mean, it's something that, we've kind of fallen off a little bit, but we had 9 years straight. Yeah, 9 years straight. I think 2019 was the last year. So, yeah, 9 years straight of bringing in income. And the last year, I think we did maybe like 15 grand or 10 something. It wasn't as good, but we only had 2 locations instead of 5, and it was just a smaller kind of condensed event. So, but it was fun.
That's fantastic. Good for you.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, if I mention Trad Bastian to anybody that from Charleston, they're gonna know who you are or of you.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the circles you're in, but probably I've got friends from all over, and there was a group of women that graduated from NC State, and they came down here. I think it was like 6 or 7 of them, and they rented a place downtown. One of the girls had dated a buddy of mine. When they broke up, the girls adopted me and left him, and they were cooler than he was anyway, so I was cool with it. But we would go out and this was before I graduated, but we'd go out, during like Thanksgiving, and we'd go to the bars that I normally would go to, and all the people that I knew growing up would go to. And I'd see everybody from high school that came back from college to, meet with their family and stuff. And so this group of girls would go out, and they'd talking to all these people, and like, Trad, you're like the mayor of Charleston. You know everybody. I was like, I just grew up here, man. It's a small town. It's not a big place. I mean, I'll take the credit, but yeah. So I mean, you may. And the funny thing is too, and my mom told me this growing up. She's like, there are people that you don't know that know you just from your family, and just be mindful of that, because when you're doing dumb shit, there's probably somebody that knows you that's going to tell me. I was like, great. You get spies everywhere.
You're probably 2 degrees of separation from everybody in Charleston.
Somehow, shape, form, or fashion. Yeah, man. It's funny. Well, perfect example. I got a guy from my baseball league who the coach of his team I'd worked with before. He was getting divorced. Coach was like, hey, you need to call Trad and he can get your house sold. He hits me up on Facebook Messenger because I didn't have his number. He didn't have mine. We linked up, get his house sold. Now I'm working with his mom. The mom's boyfriend went to high school with my dad.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like so random.
Yeah.
And she lives in Augusta. She doesn't even live here. So I mean, like, it's not even like she was it's wild. It happens on a daily basis.
Well, that's fantastic. I think for anybody that's in the town where they grew up in the real estate, you have, and even if they didn't grow up there, your playbook is brilliant, and it's all about being you, being natural, doing what you love what you're doing, and then build your business around that. Anything you want to add to sign off, Trad?
Well, it was funny because I went to the KWYP mastermind at at Mega Camp this year, and Gary Keller and Jason Abrams were in there talking with everybody, and Jason was talking about how you need to do what you love and then turn that into networking, like business networking. I was like, is he trying to steal my hobby hustle? What, or are you promoting it for me? I like this. Let's get on. Let's get this going. So it was just cool to kind of see what I was, and I hadn't even built it out yet fully, but it was cool to see that I wasn't the only one thinking the same way. And it was one of those things where, like, even at y'all's meeting, or the class I taught y'all's market center, just the ideas that came, and I kind of figured there'd be like a handful of people that actually interacted while we were, in the class, and that's why I hung around for like another hour or two, because I wanted to catch, and I had great conversations with several people, but it was one of those things where the I can't remember his name, but the guy that was talking about the Miracle League, he came up to me after. He's like, "Oh man, so I get, what was his name?"
John Davison.
John Davis. Okay, cool. I'm horrible with names. I can remember his face, but I'm horrible with names. So he came up to me afterwards, and we were, sitting there and eating some food. And he goes, "Yeah, man, I really love the idea. It's cool that your baseball league was, associated with the Miracle League." And I was like, "All right, well, tell me more about what you're doing with it, because it sounds like you're already involved fully." He's like, "Yeah, man, I feel weird about getting business from it because I don't want them to think that that's the only reason I'm doing it." I'm like, "Listen, first and foremost, you've put in 11 plus years with them. You're going to get business because you're just you, and you're volunteering, and you're a part of the community. So you're going to get business that way. Don't feel bad about it. I understand where you're coming from. And there's a line there, but if you're not actively trying to just get business, and that's the only reason you're there, then you're doing it for the right reason. So you're good."
Right.
And I was like, "So tell me more about what you do." He's like, "Oh, well, we did a deal with a family from the Miracle League, and I opted to give it as a donation. And we did like, not sponsorships, but scholarships. So he gave like $500 to 3 different families." And I was like, "That's awesome. I love that idea." And he was like, "Yeah, I just want to get linked in with like the colleges and stuff like that, because the softball team and the baseball team also come out." And I was like, "Well, why don't you talk with the organizer for the Miracle League and see how you can, one, set that up, and two, what else you can be doing? Where's the value that they need from you? What do they need right now? Whether that's more people, because from the nonprofit sector, volunteers are huge. So if you can bring in people," and I was like, "So bring your clients in so they get a feel good. They see that you're invested in your community, not just trying to make money from your community. And then you're also helping Miracle League by bringing in more people." He's like, "That's a great idea." And I was like, "All right, you got this scholarship. How can you increase either the dollar amount you're giving per family or the number of families that you can touch?"
Right.
He goes, "We need more money." I was like, "Okay, cool. Can you get the softball and the baseball teams to generate like fundraise for it? Because I guarantee you they would. And even if it's just the people on the team throwing in $20 a piece,
Yeah,
you'll get more money." And he was like, "Yeah, that's a really good idea." And I was like, so I get more energy out of that kind of stuff. And I love my clients. I'm good at what I do. I enjoy what I do, but I'm at a stage in my life where I'm like, I want more time. The things that give me the most energy are stuff like this, like just talking shop, trying to figure out different ways of helping people, and then giving them different options, because I can't implement all these ideas, but
right.
he can. And the woman that did the master gardening, she can. I'm not going to go out and become a master gardener, but she can do it. She's already doing it. I'm like, you just need to flip it just a little bit, and now it becomes networking, and you'll get more business from it. So that's where I'm getting most energy right now, and it's fun. I'm trying to figure out how I can do more of that and still make enough money to support my family and do the things we want to do. So we're working on it. I don't know that I'll ever monetize the actual class, but I'm talking to some different coaching companies about getting into coaching. So that should be fun.
Hey, nothing else, it'll increase your networking and your potential referrals into
Exactly. And that's the other thing too. I mean, and just like I was talking about earlier, you're developing relationships with these people. And so I did a couple classes via Zoom. It was okay. There was people that were engaged. It was fun, but I need to be belly to belly with people, man. That's where I really enjoy having conversations. And I left there pumped to drive 4.5 hours home. So it was good.
Cool. Hey, Trad, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man.
It was just a super easy conversation, and I appreciate your time and your knowledge. And I think the big message here is be yourself. Don't overthink it. Just execute. Just keep moving forward and
just
be real.
Just do it, man. Just do it. If you have an idea, figure out who you need to, partner with to make it happen, and be you. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't compare yourself to other people, and you'll be fine.
Sounds good. Thanks, Trad.
Yeah, man.
Stay on. I want to talk to you afterwards.